Welcome to Pixel Composer 1.18.9. This version comes with a number of new nodes and a lot of improvement, especially on the animation panels. Let's get through it. So first we have the quantized color node, which is a node that allows you to reduce the number of colors in each RGB channels or in different color space. You can control the number of color in each channels. You can also control the step of the alpha channels. You can also apply dithering. Then we have the shape part 3D node, which is similar to the shape part, right? But instead it will output a 3D part. So now you can create 3D part easily, like with some interesting shapes. And then we have the frame loop node, which will allow you to loop the animation. For the example, we have a short animation frames like this, and then I send it to the frame loop. You can control where the loop starts, duration of the loop. You can also set what to display before the loop and after the loop. And it's just gonna loop the animation based on the range that you set. You can also see that in the timeline here, it's gonna show you the loop area, right, and the current frame that it is displaying. Next, we have the surface to font node, which will allow you to convert an array of surface, array of image, into a font. So you give it an array of surface like this, and you tell them the character that you want each surface to map to. In this case, we map to A, B, C. So the first surface will be A, B, and C. Then you can use these font values, connect it to other node. Well, in this case, only node that uses the font value is the draw text. And now you can use the ABC, right? You can just type normally, and the ABC just gonna convert to the surface that you use. And next we have the HTTP download node. So this node will take in HTTP address or URL address, and then we download the file. And if that file is a valid image, it will also load it to your project. Like in the example, I have just basic image from itch.io, and it will just load it in. And then we have a number of text manipulation nodes. So we have the format text, so you put in a text, and then you have the bracket followed with variable names. And then in the argument section, you can then define the variable name to a value that you want. And then it's just gonna replace the variable with the proper values, right? And next is a count text. This is very simple. You just give it a text and then the text to count, and it's just gonna tell you how many times the count text appear on the original text. Then we have the delete text, which you remove part of the text based on the index. So you can tell them where to start and how many characters you want to delete. Now if you want to remove text based on another text, then you can use like regex replace, which is like the default text replacement node. So you can tell them that this is the original text and then just match the word pixel, right, and then replace it with nothing. It will just mean remove the word pixel. Then we have change case. So this will allow you to change the case of the text. You can make it lowercase or uppercase or title case. And next we have date time node. So this node will output current date and current time. So you can give it a date time format. There are format guides here to tell you what value you can use. And then you're just gonna output the date time as a string. Now this node doesn't get updated all the time, right? It's updated with your graph. So as you can see here, even though I have the second part here, the second part here doesn't change, right? Even when I run the animation, that it will gonna start getting the current second. Next feature would be the addition of the dynamic drawer system. Let's go through the problem I try to solve first. In my case, I want to create like a particle effect, and I want the particle itself to be like a circle with a border. So I can have a circle that I want, add an outline and an inside outline, and then only get the outline output here when I get to particle sprite. And it will just do that, right? It will output the particle, look pretty nice. However, if I want it to scale over time, right, go to the scale over time properties, and then I change it so that it becomes smaller, and I try to play the animation, you're gonna see that things get pretty bad, right? When you scale particle or when you scale image, at some point you're gonna break some properties, right? Because it's just an image, it's just a surface, and it just scale it down. It doesn't have information of like the thickness of the line and stuff like that. So I create this dynamic drawer system that will just draw the shape as it needed at any size. You can go to the surface dialog here, you click on it, and you're gonna see a new section called dynamic draw, and it's just gonna be a preset shapes. For example, if I want a circle with border, right, I can just click on the circle with border, and now I set the font size, let's say 6 by 12. It's gonna draw a circle with border without any scaling artifact, but you can keep it different thickness. You can even control the properties of some parameter. In this case, I can have it so that the thickness decreases over time. And as you can see, there are also other dynamic drawer shape as well, like a polygonal shape. You can have it draw like a hexagon, right? And then maybe change it to be a triangle or whatever. And also you can control the rotation in the rotation properties. So you can randomize its rotation or have it rotate over time. And you can do all kind of interesting operation without having to worry about the scaling or the rotating surface, which will introduce all kind of artifacts. And on the topic of the particle, there also an update on the particle and the scatter node, which allow for the new sampler surface. You're gonna see that new input here called sample surface, and I can give it some surface. In this case, that's gonna be basic gradient. And now the particle will sample or will get the colors at the position that it is spawned as its base color. Right, so based on this gradient, the particle that spawned in the bottom will be black and the one on top will be white. And it's only based on when it spawned, so it's gonna keep its spawn colors throughout its lifespan. And this allows you to create some interesting particle disintegration effect like this. Now this uses a combination of the dynamic drawer with the line type and the feedback system. The shape part also got new shapes, basically the spiral and the spiral circle, which allow you to generate spiral shape just like the 3D counterpart. The shape part also got a bunch of new shapes to match with the normal shape node. And I add that because with the introduction of the 3D mesh extrude, the mesh value output from this node can become way more useful now, right? So I add more shape there. Next is the part CSV node. The cache node also have a new option to disable data serialization, so that the node itself will not store the surface data in your save file. Next is the surface extrude improvement, which is an option for you to define a texture separate from the extrude texture. By default, when you extrude a surface, it will use that surface as a texture automatically, and there's no way to change that. But now there is a texture option here that you can override the texture with a new one, which in this case I use it to create this Tetris animation. The export node also got a new built-in GIF encoder, so when you select the animation and GIF, there's gonna be this toggle to use the built-in GIF encoder. In the past, I used image magic to convert an image sequence into a GIF file. However, I found that there are built-in GIF encoder in GameMaker, so I just added that you can use instead. Now, when you use this, I found that the file size become bigger, right? It's like the quality setting is like fixed at maximum. No matter what you change here, your file size is gonna be bigger, and there's gonna be more colors. But I believe it is faster because it doesn't have to save each image as a separate file. It just do everything inside the software itself. And a very small change to the gradient node that might mess up your project is that the scale value is now inverted. So in the past, when you increase the scale, your gradient got smaller, right? It doesn't make much sense. So now in this version forward, I invert the scale value, so now it should work appropriately. You increase the scale value and the gradient size got bigger, right? And this means that your scale control in the preview panel are more reasonable. You can see it also rotate with your angle, make it easier for you to control your gradient. Next is the MK delay machine. So this is a node that will delay an image multiple times and then combine it back together. And you have an option to like apply blending over each hop piece. There are options to control the opacity, so on and so forth. This is already existed, but now there are an option to invert the draw order. So if you toggle it, you're gonna see that the order is gonna be inverted. And then a very small update, the part preview and I use uniform scaling, and the part data will now be rendered properly when you're holding a shift key over the junction. Then we have update on the curve data. In the curve editor, you're gonna see that there are two new modes. By default, it's gonna be a Bezier curve like this, but there's now a new mode to disable the blending or the interpolation altogether. So now it's just gonna be a linear segments. And there's new step mode, which make it really easy to create a step curve. The curve box also got some slight improvement. You can now hold control while dragging on the curve viewer to move both of them at the same time, right? Zoom in, zoom out basically. And you can double click to reset. There's now an improvement on the undo system. So now you can undo more stuff like node rename or the text area or the text editing. The gradient editor also got some improvement. We have the new distribute key button, which will allow you to evenly distribute all key in the current gradient. And if you set it to a solid mode, the distribution here will make sure that all colors show up. The palette editor also got a number of improvements. In the add preset, you can now add preset directly from low spec. Then option to sort the palette. You can sort by name, sort by the palette size, or different properties. And the palette editor also got an integrated palette mixer. It's an old feature that I already have as a separate panels, but now it's built into the palette editor itself. And now you can select multiple colors, and then you can go to the palette mixer. And this is where you can mix color in your palette to create a new one. I can add color in between two colors and we'll just update on the palette editor. I can connect between two colors and then add a new one. Now the caveat is that this palette mixer is not persistent. The moment you exit from it, it will just reset, right? So it's only used for like add in the in-between color and stuff like that. Next will be an improvement to the animation panels. First, when you click on the node, it will now select the node by default. You can now hold Ctrl key to add keyframe at anywhere on your animation. You can now select multiple keyframes and then hold Alt key, and you're gonna see that the highlight color change. So now you can click and drag to scale the keyframe. You can also click at the first key to scale it from the other direction. And when you scale keyframes, some frame might ends up in like this weird decimal frames. You can now quantize the keyframe to its integer frames by pressing Q. The Boolean data now will also draw lines, which allow you to see which area in the timeline where the value is true. And the cache line will now show up persistently on the dope sheet itself, instead of just showing up here in the summary, which will disappear when you click on other node. The animation scaler are now changed to animation tools, and if you click on it, you have the scaler, which you can already use, and we also have the animation cleaner or keyframe cleaner, which will quantize all the keyframe, and it can also delete overflow keyframes, which can happen sometimes when you try to import the older version. And there's more user interface improvement as well, like you can select multiple nodes and then right click and then select new folder from selection. I also improved the compact mode, which can be toggled using H key, which will just remove all the node label and only show the animation values. And as usual, we have a series of bug fixes in this version. We are now at the 0.9 beta, so I think it's a good time for me to start to focus on bug fix and stability to prepare for the next stable now, 1.19, which means that in the next version, in the next beta, like 0.10, 0.11, then probably not gonna be a lot of new feature then. Because I will be preparing for the next stable, I have to go and update all the node or the project to make sure that everything works. But there might still be some new feature update, but I will make sure that those features will not be like a big feature that will break compatibility and stuff like that. That will be it for today's video. Special thanks for every single Patreon supporter. Thank you everyone for watching, and see you in the next one.